everybody. I've been kind of quiet for about the last, well, about a week and a half, I think. How long has it been, right? I don't really know, but it's because I've had my head in the computer, not literally in the computer. That would kind of be a little bit difficult. I don't think my head would fit in there. It might kind of hurt, so. Anyway, I kind of digress and I'm getting off topic, but I know I've been kind of quiet and perhaps not really visible that much lately, with the exception of the appearance on a KRS channel. Just been really super busy, but here I am now back in time for your full moon video for the full moon in Vishakha Nakshatra on the 10th of May 2017. And if you watch a little bit later on in the week, there's going to be another video on Tarabala. Okay, but let's talk about the matter at hand, which is this full moon, which will become exactly full at about 10:42 p.m. UK time. As always, you can go and look online to see where that's going to be happening in your particular area. So I think some of the things that we need to talk about today is how important it is really to not act impulsively. But equally, it's just as important to not sit around wanting to mull things over to the nth degree, to the extent that you get so utterly confused that, you know, it might have been better that you would have taken action. And so that's where we kind of find ourselves at this particular moment in time. There's something that you have been long desiring to shift on, put in the rearview mirror, hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more. Don't worry, I'm not going to break into any song and dance, but I think you get the general idea. You're ready for a change, and you've been ready for a change, but at the same time, you don't want to act too impulsively. But at the same time, you're kind of mulling things over. Should I do this? Should I do that? Do I want to go this direction? Do I want to go that direction? You're going back and forth, up and down, inside out, upside down. No, only kidding. And you just don't know what you're going to do, right? So here's a suggestion. Here's a suggestion. Why don't you just take things one step at a time, right? That's a good solution. Take things one step at a time. And if something goes wrong, look at what might have gone wrong. Readjust what you're dealing with, right? Be willing to let go of those aspects of the situation that aren't working. Try something else. Because, you know, with Vishakha Nakshatra, there's a certain tendency to want to go down several different roads at the same time. Eventually, you have to commit to one of those particular roads. But sometimes you can test out a path a little bit. You know, let's say you're kind of at this junction, right? There you go. You've got kind of 3 different paths you can go on. Let's kind of make it like that. There we go. Look, I'm going to make a butterfly on the wall. No, only kidding. You got 3 different paths you can go down, and you're right at the beginning of that path. If you go down one, it's not too late to turn back and come back to center, and then explore the other one, and then come back to center, and then go down the other one, and then come back to center. Problem is, you don't know what lays further on down the road, and I think that's what's holding you back just a little too much. And in addition to that, when you start down a particular path, you find yourself in a position where things aren't going wrong, and then you kind of start taking it personally. And you feel like you don't have any power or strength to deal with the situation, or you can't muster enough oomph to really, you know, commit to a particular path. And so you end up doing nothing, right? But the thing is, you got to stop taking it personally, right? And if you will just kind of look at what's going on in your life on a clear level, even if you're not able to see it clearly, if you just look at it long enough, you will see it clearly, right? And that's kind of contradictory, doesn't it seem like? You know, you don't want to look at things for too long, but if you look at things in the right way. The problem is that you're attaching too much to what you're doing. When it doesn't work out, you think that it's your fault. It's not your fault. Sometimes life just presents us with circumstances. Best you can do really as an individual is to learn what you're learning. And if you look at I want to say the cosmic feedback that's coming back to you, in other words, you do something, you see actions coming back to you. If you look at it deeply enough, you'll really kind of be able to figure out that none of this is you, so to speak. So you don't need to take it personally, right? Instead, you just kind of need to look at things and figure out which of these paths is the absolute best one for me to take. Which one feels right in my heart? Ultimately, you have to live by your own ethics, right? You have to decide what's worthy of sacrificing and what's not worthy of sacrificing. Ultimately, you can't continue down all three paths at the same time. You will need to commit to one. But right now, you're kind of going through a purification process in connection with all of those different avenues that you're trying out. Let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about some of the aspects that are going on with this particular full moon cycle. First of all, I just want to add another thing. Try not to get frustrated with yourself during this particular period. Try not to have a chip on your shoulder. Try also to recognize that there's nothing that you have to prove to anyone. All you have to do is accept yourself, even if you make a mistake. And is it a mistake? Most likely not, right? It's just needing to kind of adjust your actions a little bit. So with this particular full moon cycle, we have several different aspects going on. We've got Mercury now shifting forward in Ashwini Nakshatra. And Mercury is being supported by Ketu in Vishakha Nakshatra. And due to this particular interaction, well, on some levels, I want to use the phrase, you're at peace that everything may not work out absolutely perfectly. But in addition to that, you're kind of feeling pulled in several different directions at once. That's both a bonus and a curse. Obviously, the curse side of it is feeling pulled in several different directions and uncertain of what to do, with this inner feeling that somehow, well, you got to do something, right? But the other bit is you're beginning to kind of recognize, you know what, I just have to accept this. So you're at the beginning of a process, and that's what this particular aspect is suggesting. Mars is making two aspects this week, and Mars is in the moon's nakshatra. One of those aspects is to the moon. And with this particular interaction of Mars with the moon, there's a need to really feel like you're making some progress, really feel like you're moving things in the appropriate direction, right? But there's equally this hunger, and sometimes with Mars, you have to be careful of that hunger, because it can cause the actions that you take to be a little too passionate. And ultimately, because of another aspect that's going on between Mars and Jupiter, you're in this process of kind of sorting through things. Some of the things that you've tried recently, they haven't really worked in your favor, and it kind of has made you feel like you've been led astray, and you're perhaps a little bit disappointed in yourself. But really, again, there's no need to be disappointed in yourself. If something, if you've gone through a process, this is the phrase I want to use, if you've gone through a process of reassessing where your heart is, and you've learned that something that you thought that you felt isn't really what you feel at all, is that being fickle? No. It's just you going through changes, going through adjustments, needing to learn, needing to pay attention, right? And it's all part of the greater plan that's going on right now. You're maybe feeling uncertain because you're supposed to feel uncertain. You don't know what feels right. That's because you're learning what feels right. And were we to always stick with the same thoughts, same beliefs, same way of looking at things throughout the course of our life, we wouldn't ever have any progress, right? So the situation you find yourself in right now, materially here, on the earth, ups and downs, ins and outs, debts and gains, all of those things that go on, that feels very concrete and real, and it's making you feel this pressure that you've got to do something, and you can't dither for too long. And really, on a certain level, you can't. But because it's not been working to the level that you might like for it to work, you're, again, going back to what I was saying earlier, you're beginning to blame yourself for that, right? And that's the pressure you're feeling from the outside world. The understanding, the realization that you need to have on the spiritual level is that you're going through perhaps a minor crisis of belief, a minor crisis of ethics, having to understand, what's really right by your heart. And you're learning perhaps where you have been seeing things intellectually based upon subjective feelings. That's a really complex concept. Seeing things intellectually because of subjective feelings. Well, sometimes the subjective side of yourself, the desires, gets so caught up in confusion, in what it thinks that it's seeing, right? That you begin to overly intellectualize the circumstances that you're dealing with. And that's when that desire to mull things over kind of begins to railroad you. You're going down one path and you take a diversion, and next thing you know, you're going way over there until finally you're too far down that road to really be able to turn back, talking about those diversions again. So on a certain level, it's better that you're at center right now. It's better that you really kind of let the growth process happen, that you let yourself sort through all those things that are going on within your head, right? So that you can truly understand your heart. So I'll say that again. You need to let yourself kind of go through those things that are processing through your head so that they clear out, so that you're able to tune into your heart. Now, Venus, equally, now moving forward, is in Revati Nakshatra now. And it's also forming an aspect with Jupiter. This particular aspect has the planet that likes to advise us in material affairs in terms of how we're finding fulfillment and pleasure in our life, interacting with the planet that's trying to advise us in terms of how to process these things spiritually. And that's the Venus-Jupiter interaction. And so it's really kind of creating this thing of, if I go this way, it's going to affect my material life this way. If I go that way, though, it's going to be the wisest spiritual action that I can possibly take. And on one level, those two things seem at odds. And with Venus in Revati Nakshatra, it's kind of got you in this holding pattern, but maybe that's really good, because you're going to let those two planets, Venus and Jupiter, come to a state of balance. In addition to that, you've got the Sun in Kritika Nakshatra and Mars in Rohini Nakshatra, both interacting with Saturn. That is, just on some levels taking things very slowly and steadily, but because of his narrow-minded focus, is continuing to push up against the boundaries. And as that's happening, becoming too intensively ego-involved in the circumstances that it's dealing with. And so what you've got to do in those particular circumstances is to recognize this week that it's not about the ego. It's not about the ego. It's not about whether you're doing a good job. It's not about whether you're overachieving or underachieving. It's not any of those things. Ultimately, it's about whether you're learning. You're not going to have any power in the world out there, which might be what you're desiring, until you have that power in here. When you have that power in here, it doesn't matter if you have the worst experiences in your life, because you're going to come back to right here, and you're going to be strong through them, and you're going to go through them, and you're going to learn through the processes. So you've always got to come back to that space of center. And that's one of those lessons of Vishakha Nakshatra, which is symbolized by a potter's wheel. So it's about allowing yourself to be molded. Being molded doesn't mean that you're weak. It means that you're aware. And so I suggest that you take that lesson to heart. Don't feel too compelled to take immediate action, but equally don't get bogged down in the circumstances that you're dealing with to the point that things become confused. If it feels right, take a little bit of action, go down that road, watch the result. That's really the best thing you can do. And that's all that's being asked of you in the moment. If you would like to know a little bit more about how this particular full moon cycle affects you personally or anything else in your life, please feel free to schedule one of my astrological services. You should see a link in the video right about this particular point in the upper corner. If you don't see it, it will be there in just a couple of seconds. That's going to do it for your full moon video for the full moon in Vishakha Nakshatra for the 10th of May, 2017. Until next time, which I promise won't be too long, please take the very best care of yourself. Bye now.